G'day everyone, my name's CautiousPancake and welcome back to my Aska playthrough of the new Seaborne Raiders update. It's very early on day 5 at the moment, and the major objective for today is to get this farm finished and get some flax under production so that we can get plenty of rope and even start thinking about making some clothes. So with the building finished now, it's time to think about who we're going to get to work here. So bringing up the workers menu, we could put Asa in, but they've got no farming. Oidus does have farming, so that's a good option, but it's always worth, since we kind of want another villager to come anyway, maybe it's worth bringing them in first, just in case we get a better option. So, since we're lacking 4 of the Jotunbloods, let's go hit some rocks with a hammer. So that last Jotunblood takes us to 9, which is a nice little end of the overnight mining session. Because with the one that we've already got back in the eye, that'll give us 10 total, which is enough for 2 new villagers. So let's put 4 more in and get somebody in. Who've we got? Bad logger, good in harvesting crops, so that could be good for the farm. Power of storms and not good at rock mining, so maybe we'll get the farmer in, or the person that might be a good farmer, just in case they get better skills than we would get for Oidus. But in the meantime, it's time to start laying out our crop fields. So just start placing them, and then you can click and drag and lay out your shape. So we just want to bring it over, make sure it doesn't overlap with the workshop hut, pit I should say. Now we've got a couple of options with shapes. What's that, a 3x5? It's 15 grid squares. I normally go with a 4x4, which is 16 grid squares. I don't actually know whether that makes a difference, whether the crops and the yields actually automatically adjust themselves, whether it's 15 or 16. That's something to test one day, but for now I'm just going to go with the 4x4, 16 squares, just to make sure that there's no issue. We don't lose out on a crop that way. Put in a second one, and I might even just lay out the third one. We don't need to build them all necessarily straight away, and we don't need to certainly try and plant and use them all straight away, but at least this way we won't forget where the farm fields go and accidentally build something over the top. Need a bit more rope for this one. Builder's running around putting stuff in for us. Good job. Now, we've got Gertrude, good at harvesting crops but better as a craftsman. Asa, who's got not good at stone mining, is good at lumberjacking and is a retired bowman as well. In terms of getting skills, has 3-star for ranged combat, so definitely a good archer, whereas Gertrude is a crafter or gatherer. So Gertrude should stay in the workshop pit, that's definitely right. It's just where do we put Asa, that's the question. And what we maybe need to think about is, since Asa's so good at archery, can we build an archery range? Yeah, the materials don't look too bad. There's nothing there that we can't sort of get our hands on at the moment. It's just a question now of where's the best space to put it. It's not a small building. So I might just have to sort of go over here next to our workshop. Again, we want to make sure that we leave the sides of that clear for the expansions, and rotate this around so that they can come from the shelters straight into where they need to be practicing their archery. I'm not going to necessarily assign someone to it permanently, but at least for a little while. What are you waiting on, fiber? Yeah, that's why we need to make the flax. But yeah, having someone in the archery temporarily will just mean that they'll train up their skills with a bow and arrow, and we can potentially reassign them then later to a hunter's hut to go get meat for us, or use them as part of the militia to defend the town. Don't have a lot of bark. Be good to just get some extra rope is what I'm trying to get done here, so that we can finish off those farm fields. We need the farm fields to plant the flax, to get more rope, so that we can make all the rest of the things. So we really need to get that underway, and we need someone to look after the farm for us. So that might need to be Oidus. So let's get Oidus assigned there. That'll just have to do for now. In the meantime, what do we need? A couple of rope, which we do actually have on us now. So the builders must have put a little bit in there. So now we've got that all set, and we could potentially put a little bit more in there. Get that one underway as well. Let's track this one, work out what we need. We could put some stones in straight away. Looks like the builders have been sort of tickling away at that one for a little while. And what do you need? You need a farming task. Right, let's actually assign some crops. That would be a good idea. And we just want flax to start with. Flax all year round. There we go. Let's plant them, because we want them, this field, just to always give us lots and lots of fiber. You know, you notice this time I'm not going to clear previous plants, because they're going to keep growing all season round. There's no point ripping them out at the end of the season if they're not fully finished. You can just let them keep going into the next season and keep growing. It'll be more effective that way, because you're not starting from scratch each season. So there we go, year-round flax in that one. And we're probably also going to need to do a little bit of hand-holding here, because we couldn't queue up the rake until we built the farm. Oh, and here's Sune as well. But we really need to get this rake built. What do we need? Wood and rope, sticks and rope. We could just assign it as a task, actually, rather than try and do it ourselves. So let's do that. Put one in there, and we can drag it up just to make it almost the most urgent thing after the bits to making it as well. So that should make a rake in a minute and automatically get assigned, or at least Oidus will go over and grab one as soon as it's ready. And in the meantime, we probably can just go and do the usual reed harvesting to make some rope. Since I'm also going to need some sticks to make a rake, might as well just grab them ourselves from the beach. And then if we mosey on back, I suspect Oidus is still waiting on a rake, so we might as well just craft it ourselves and then transfer it straight in. Yep, still needs a rake. Boom, there you go. Don't say I do nothing for you. Oidus will go start clearing out the fields, and we can go back to thinking about finishing the archery range, just waiting on 3 big logs. That long stick's just sticking in the end in the dirt. So let's chop down some trees, get those logs ready. Now, one thing I forgot to look at was our new villager. Sune is good at crops, good vitality, good at walking in the snow, not good at chopping down trees. So potentially a farmer. Ooh, now that we've got our... Oh, I always thought that was done. Dang it, forgot it's a 3-part build. Let's put some more rope in. Brings that down to only 2 more needed. Hurry up and do some farming. I know that's still actually a long way away, but you can dream that it'll be soon. In the meantime, we've got to finish up the stonecutters, make that a stonecutter's hut from the pit. That's the next thing we need to be able to upgrade our workshop pit. Once we've got that, we can also make some cloth with all the fiber that we're going to be sitting under once this farm gets cranking. So let's get this underway so that we can do the workshop. That's probably the next thing that we need. And since we're out of logs again, it's time to chop down another tree. And it looks like while we did that, the builders actually found some other logs from probably our woodcutter chopping them down. So they've finished the stonecutter's hut now. And they've also pushed the archery range all the way to completion. We just need to knock that in now, and that'll be done. Boom! Archery range. Let's just clear that out, and we can assign in Asa, who's our retired bowman, and has lots of potential training skills to apply to the bow and arrow. Now, one thing I forgot to do during the day was to get in our other villager, so let's do that now, even though we've had them around. Got another huntsman and bowman, potentially in Fieti. And Hansen's got Wind Rider and Mighty Vigor. So, since we probably don't need another bowman right straight away, let's go for Hansen and see what we get. Just looking through, we've still got Sune as a builder, that's probably fine. We need somebody to run around doing building things for us. And Sune actually has no relevant proficiency, so he's a bit useless. Might be a bit of a jack of all trades, someone to assign to buildings that we don't need lots of skills on. They can harvest crops in the fall, but they have no farming affinity, so that's a little interesting. How are we doing with planting is probably the other question. Oh, we're actually really quite thirsty. Let's actually take a drink, shall we? Maybe two. There we go. And we also need some food, which means that we probably need to start thinking about that cooking hut. There's always so many things to work on, which is one of the things I love. Trying to work out, what is the sort of, not necessarily optimal, although I'm sure, there's an optimal course to make for your playthrough, but at least what's the next best thing that we're going to need to keep our villagers happy and keep everybody fed. We could start looking at some of the hunters' huts, or potentially some of the other buildings. Cottage is probably a good idea as well, since we're seriously lacking in housing now, and just building shelter after shelter doesn't feel like the approach that we should be taking. So just need to think about where we want the cottages. I usually, it's a good idea to keep them away from your crafting and your labour skills, so away from the woodcutter's hut and away from the stonecutter's hut and your farms, etc. So I think we just might need to start making a bit of space inside the village by chopping down some trees, which will also help restock our wood supplies. Ooh, and here's Hansen. Feel like singing bebop, doobop, something. Anyway, moving right along. Hansen's only got proficiencies in melee combat, but looks like he's got a few talents that might go along with that as well, so that's something to keep in mind for later, but for now he's probably just going to be a jack of all trades that we can stuff anywhere into building that we just need working for a little while. So doesn't need to be a master craftsman for now, just keep some stuff happening as best you can, buddy. Okay, so after spending half the night chopping down trees, do we have enough space now just at the front of the base on the other side of the well to get a cottage in? It flashed okay there for a second. Just trying to work out where that'll line up. So we could put it here, but once again it gets kind of a bit close to that well. Kind of want to push it back just a little bit, because you want to make it look nice, and that well's not going to move. So I think this tree needs to come out as well. There we go. And since that kind of makes a bit of a mess, I might just do a little bit of tidy up, even if it's just moving things out of the way of where we're going to want the cottage to go, and we'll just chuck them on the ground here. Alright, with that extra tree out of the way, I think we've got a bit of space now between the cottage and the well. We can just chuck that in there, and Now that we can see where it's going, we can move the last bits and pieces of wood out of the way while the builders start leveling out the terrain. While they get going, let's just double check what's going on over here. You're homeless and exhausted, so that makes sense that you're a little unhappy and haven't started training yet. I was just checking whether Asa was starting work in the archery range, but since he's got nowhere to sleep, it's probably fair enough that he's not working too hard. And there's the terrain leveling done. Let's see if we can start to just grab grab things as we stand that long stick on its end. There's got to be a joke there about that wood standing up, but I'll let that go. What else do we need? Now, one thing I forgot to check was whether or not the farmer has enough seeds, because up until now they've probably all gone into the gatherer's pit or gatherer's hut. So let's grab the flax seeds and you come back here. You take those. Oh, wrong side. There we go. And then you should be able to go use them straight away. There we go. Go straight over and plant the flax seeds because we want lots and lots of yummy fiber. Not that we eat it, but we want it all ready for cloth and rope production. From there, I think it's just time to help out our builders. Get this cottage build underway because we really need that completed so that people have somewhere to sleep. Pop that in and this will finish off the first phase. And straight away we need 15 more rope. Wow. Okay, I don't remember it using this much rope before the update, so maybe it's changed or maybe my memory's terrible. Both equally possible. Okay, that's lots of sort of the basic materials that I've thrown in. So now I think we need to grind out some rope. So let's go thatch gathering and smash it down for fiber afterwards. Well, that was handy. The builders obviously grabbed 5 rope from our craftsmen at the workshop. They've obviously made that 5 that we've always got set there as a task, and that put it onto the cottage. So we only needed 10 more rope at the end. And now we need bark. I kind of hope that they haven't been running around shredding bark to make the fiber for the rope that's been needed, but I wouldn't put it past it. So let's actually see if we can clear out our bags. There goes a bunch of thatch that we can get back to later. And let's grab all the bark from here. Or at least all the bark that we can carry. Pop that straight in the cottage. And did I see some over here before? I did, but I think they've already grabbed that. And did they just clear out the storage as well for us? Yes, they did. So we need 8 more bark, which is 2 more trees. So I think it's time to chop down some trees. We're going to do these ones because they're kind of in the way of where I want to put the next cottage. So, tree chopping time. Okay, with this tree done, there should now be 4 bark sitting on the ground. So one of the builders should grab that in a second. So we'll knock down this tree stump while we wait for the builder to get them. Whoa. I swear our lumberjack just shredded a bark. It did. We only got 3. So now we're short 1 bark. Because you shredded it for the fiber, which isn't ideal. So we can do 1 more tree, I guess. Just for the fun of it. And that will get us the last bark that we need to finish our cottage. There we go. And I'm going to take all of the bark straight away because I don't trust the lumberjack to come back and shred another one. So that'll do the roof. We'll put the bark back over in storage since we're not going to need that. And the builder's going to finish that and we should just have then the door to go. Yep. 2 rope, 1 long stick, and a bunch of small sticks. I thought we still had some rope on us, but obviously not. Pretty sure that should be hanging around somewhere, and that maybe the rope can be made by the craftsman. So while we wait, I might as well start clearing more space for the next cottage to go in. Actually, I'm not sure that I want to wait for the rope to be made by the craftsman, because it's now coming on night time and we need to find a bed to sleep in for some of our homeless villagers. So let's push forward instead. Since we only need 2 rope, we can just sort of make that up quickly and easily like that. So we'll knock that out. And there's our cottage, which comes with 2 beds to assign. And we've got 3 homeless villagers, so that's not ideal. Maybe we can go and knock out an extra bed. So let's just come in here, bring the build menu up, and on the furniture, build a bed. We can put an extra bed there. Another one on the other side. And I want to try something different on this one. Rather than putting them down the front, I'm going to put an extra bed there. And an extra bed right in the doorway, which, in all honesty, would be a pretty terrible bed spot to have. But for these guys, they can make do. You can potentially put some extra furniture in. You can always put some extra beds in, but their happiness goes down once you get beyond 6. So let's put a firewall. Actually, I don't want to put the firewood pit in just yet because, ooh, that one's now ready to make. I don't want the firewood to start taking away from other firewood needs just yet. And it also needs, again, extra materials just to make the furniture. And I'd rather keep them for now. So now we can assign our last homeless person, which is Hanson. Now everybody's got a place to sleep, which is a good position to be back at. You don't want sleepy villagers. Now, we're a bit hungry, so let's finish off some more eggs. That'll get us filled up. And from there, I think it's time for a bit of nighttime base cleanup. There we go. Let's knock that tree out of the way, which also means that we've got a little bit more space and land in there for the moment. Let's just get rid of some bits and pieces. We might just drop that firewood since there's no place to store it just for the moment. Someone can clean that up for me later. And I think the next thing is to sort of flatten out this terrain, because we're going to want some extra space in here next to the archery range for something. I just want to make it a little bit flatter, a little bit more consistent. So I'll whack this in here, just sort of spread it up. I know I won't be able to do all of the blocks, but that'll probably do to make some space to start with. Don't think it's happy about the tree stump in the way, so let's get rid of that. And now we can just level out some terrain. There you go. And since we've also got some villagers that don't have a lot of skills at the moment, but like to eat food, maybe it's a good time to whack in a cooking hut. Yeah, that'll do. You can always move things around later, but it's in a kind of good spot next to the archery range, fairly close to the farm and the gatherer's hut as well, where all our food gets stored. There we go. Cooking hut is ready to make. Whack the stones in, and then we should get to work adding some extra materials in. Alright, with the cooking hut now pretty well underway, I think it's time to work out what food we're going to grow, because we're going to need some food for the cook. Particularly need vegetable matters, so all of these sorts of things, whilst the gatherers can get a little bit of them from out and about, much more effective to grow your own. Just going to put in a nice mix for summer and autumn. Should be able to use the same things across both for these crops. Yeah, just checking which season they go through, making sure that I've got that right. Pop these in here. I might actually swap out the berries since they won't grow through. And put in the cabbages. carrots and garlic. Then for winter, when nothing else really grows except for the flax and the beetroots, we're going to have to swap out and use beetroot. I think we will clear it at that point. I'm just not sure whether that does that for all seasons or just this one. I think it's for all seasons, unfortunately. But that's okay. And then for the spring, let's whack in sugar, all berries. Make lots of berry compote. And although maybe we'll mix it up and put in a little bit of onion as well, just so that we can have some variety in the food. And I think that will be all that we need. There's our crop rotation. So that middle crop will be our food crop. And then we can decide whether we need to do an extra food crop or an extra flax crop in the third one. The next thing we need for food is a hunter's hut. We're going to need some meat for the meat stew, meat soup. We could go fishing, but kind of like the hunting for now. And we also don't have anyone with a skilled fishing proficiency at this point either. But we do have Asa with the archery, so it might be a good one. Just working out where I might want to put it. I think over here might be the place. On that sort of more on the outskirts, at least for now, of the outskirts of the village. Put that in there, make a bit more flat space for them to build on. And then let's just flatten this out so that we can get the hunter's hut built on there. There we go. That's kind of nice and flat. Missed a little bit over in the corner there, but ooh. And there's our cooking hut getting finished off by the builder. So maybe that's what we should just do next. Grab a quick drink and fill up our water, so that's what we're going to need to make some stew or some soup. We'll probably start with the soups rather than the stews. And to get things sorted for cooking, probably the first thing we need to do is stop everybody from stealing the food. You can see I haven't been in here yet. And what we need to do is actually find the whitelist menu, turn that off so that none of the villagers have access to the gathering hut anymore, because we don't want them coming and helping themselves when they get hungry. Instead, I'll just take a couple of bits and pieces. Need some extra mushrooms. That's all we're going to need to start with, and we can start by making our first recipe, which will be scrambled eggs. Sure, that's not actually what it's called. Poached eggs. Poached eggs is what it's called. So let's get that cooking. Just need 3 eggs and another vegetable matter. You could use a vegetable, or you could use the mushrooms like I have, just because they're the things that we have most plentifully until we've got our farm going. You can see Asa's over there training in the archery range, and our craftsman's wandering right in front of the line of fire, but sure, you do you, if that's the easiest place to get what you need. It should be ready in a second now. Just got to wait for it to cook the first time so that we can discover the recipe. There we are, poached eggs. It'll be a nice useful thing to have cooking from time to time. The second thing we're going to make is mushroom soup, which is just 4 straight mushrooms, funnily enough, and some water. Nothing too fancy there. We'll pop them on the bench, and then the villagers can help themselves to that when they get hungry. While we wait, should we get the hunter's hut going? Or just check through what else we can make? We do need to make the outhouse at some point so that there's compost for the farm. Also need to think about a warehouse at some point for that to hold all our bits and pieces as we start to go over storage limits in the sort of gathering huts. And now that we've got our 2 basic recipes, we need to assign our cook. As you can see, no one's got a proficiency for it at the moment. So I think we're just going to put Sune, like we talked about. He's our sort of least useful guy around the village. Is he the village idiot? I don't know. But he's going to be the one that sort of we're going to use here and there. Now the other thing we want to do is turn off, I like to turn off coal and other bits and pieces. The only thing that we really want the cook to use is firewood. Does mean though that we've got to be careful to always have firewood available, otherwise no food for anybody. So we'll set this up with, do we want 8? Do we want 12? 8 maybe to start with. Poached eggs, so we always want to have that on hand, and we'll go with 4 of the mushroom soup, since that's just a little bit harder to come by at times. And that should mean Sune can go and get the materials that we need, so we might as well just dump in what we're carrying since we don't need it anymore. And then we need to also whitelist Sune on the gatherer's hut over here so that he can get in and get the food that he needs. There we go. Your storage is full. Okay, I can help with that. We can build some more things. Let's get the hunter's hut. I'm going to pop it here. As we talked about, not sure that the orientation matters too much for this particular one. Not sure where exactly we want it either. It's always nice to have a little bit of space between the buildings. So let's just pop it in the middle here. Sort out the terrain. And then we should have something that needs some stone, which will mean that the rock cutter now needs to go get some stuff. What? We'll leave that for the builder to take care of. Our farmer's sorting out the second bit of the farm, so that's good. And then we also need to start thinking about, whoop, that's not the right button. We also need to start thinking about extending our workshop. But first we're going to need to turn it from the workshop pit into the workshop hut. Then we can add the cloth making facilities and leather making facilities onto the side. So as you can see, we've got a bit of building to do now. We're also short of forage on the gatherer. You know things are not quite happy in your village when you start getting a big rung of people following you around. There you go. Builder's off sorting that one out, but we can potentially speed things up for the stone cutter by stealing some of his rocks. And that'll mean he's got something to do and he will leave us alone, stop following us around, saying he's got nothing to do. Pop these in. There we go, he's figured it out now. To get some more rocks, since we're going to use a whole pile of them for these new buildings. One other thing I've realized I need to do is grab all of the seeds out of the gatherer's hut, since our farmer won't be able to access them. And since they're going to be planting the new ones, we're just going to deposit them all straight in here. There we go. That's the seed storage for the farm. No flax, no fiber just yet, I mean. But now they've got something to be able to plant. Our flax is growing nicely. Looking forward to when that comes through. And our gatherer is still stuck and doesn't have anywhere to gather. So perhaps we do need to start thinking about where to put one of them. And given that we're going to need to build up near the mine at some point, we might need to put something just up about there, I reckon. So let's head out there and think about putting in some new gathering marker. Okay, we've just run past the mine and I do notice there is a nice little family of smoker here. So I'm going to play the rabbit a little bit, see if I can hit him with the axe. Come here, buddy. There we go. A couple of hits. Once you get them down a little bit on health, they do slow down a bit. And after that kind of sad cry, we've taken out our smoker. Let's harvest him up. And there's our first bits of meat, bit of leather, a few bone scraps as well. So that's something that we can also use just to discover up some meat-based recipes as well when we get to that point. And since I'm going over this way, I might as well take a rock with me. Okay, just refilling up my water. since we're going to need that to make more soup. And since the cook's not doing anything, let's put in, what do we need? We're going to need some veggie and some meat. So we just want the 1 meat and 3 non-meat foods. Again, I'm using mushroom because that's what I've got available, but we can use carrots and cabbages and everything, beetroot later. But for now, that's going to be enough to make the meat soup. Just put the rest of the food in there. And we can't make the meat soup task just yet. As you can see, there's raw vegetarian food for the compote. So we can add that in there, again, just as an option. If we have the food available, we might as well get that made. You can see there's a nice stack of food over there waiting for people. So that's good. What do you need, Mr. Craft? Oh, you need the feathers. The feathers that are also stuck in the gatherer's hut. Let's just wait first up, because our food's ready in a second. And there we go. 4 meat soup. Let's add that to the task, now that that's available. I'm not going to put more than 4 this time, because we don't have the hunter creating all the meat that we need yet, but store that in there so that that can be used. We're running out of storage space, so we might just eat one of them ourselves when we need it. We need it now. Let's heat that up. That'll keep us going for a little while, and let's grab all the feathers out of here for the crafter who can't get access to them anymore. Might have to think about how we fix that up in the long term, but in the short term, that's plenty of feathers. While we're here, we're going to steal the fiber and make up the rope that we need. Get that one going. It's just 3 bark now that we need for the workshop hut, of which we have none. So it might be time to chop down a tree. Again, any trees that we chop, we want to sort of over by where we were going to build the next cottage, but since I'm over here actually, let's just grab some extra reeds, and that'll help us make up that last rope that we need for the hunter's hut, or at least for the first stage of the hunter's hut. Let's shred these up, make our rope, and pop that in. That should get most of the materials out of the way that's needed for that. Other than the bark, that's probably the last thing that we're going to need. So which of these trees is most likely to be in the way? This one, which we've conveniently already started chopping down earlier. Yeah, there's our bark. That one's ready to go. Pop the rest back in there. The rest being 1. And let's see if we can get this one ready to be built as well. There we go, both buildings ready to go. Well, at least the hunter's hut will go to the next phase. And with that, probably need to start thinking once again about who's the next villager that we're going to get in, because we're continually adding new buildings, and we're going to need to make sure that we've got another villager ready to go to know sometimes what buildings you want to move to next, but also just how to rotate your people through. So let's go get some Jotun blood. Since I got distracted with rabbit hunting earlier, one thing I forgot to do was put in that food foraging marker, so that's now in place. We've got a few Jotun bloods, but there's one more that we need, so let's go over and grab this small shard. There we go, that should be enough for another villager. And I also noticed some flax in the area, so let's go grab that as well. Now I did have a thought. Since we aren't desperate for another villager, what I might do instead with these Jotun bloods is upgrade the Eye of Odin. That will allow us to set individual villagers to act as militia, so that when we are attacked, we can use them to defend the town. Just help out on some of the upcoming blood moons potentially if we need it. Some of them get a little bit hairier as we get in, so I'm not sure what we're going to get on the next one. As we cruise on in to day 8, we might just get that underway. Give our stonecutter something to go to as well, because we're going to clean him out of stone. But that'll just help us progress, and given that when we finish the hunter's hut, we're going to reassign Asa from the archery range to it temporarily to get us some meat production underway, so we're not going to need a new villager straight away. go. One more rock needed. And there we go. One Eye of Odin tier 1. And if we go in here, let's add Asa as our militia. We can add 2 people. So it'll probably be Hansen as the second one, but we might want to give him some levels in combat before we start doing that. Vidar also has some archery potential in the Stonecutter's hut. So if we get a better Stonecutter at some point, or another person that's keen for Stonecutters that we don't have anyone else to use, we can potentially put Vidar into a combat role as well. From there, I think it's time to start thinking about putting in another cottage and getting rid of all of those little shelters. So if we start sort of up next to where the other one is and try and flatten out some of this terrain just to keep it all a bit level. There we go. Let's get in there and flatten it out. There we go. Nice bit of flat land for our second cottage. As you can see, that's not going to go in straight away. I can see at least two, maybe 3 trees that we've got to get out before we'll be able to build that. So let's go do that. Chopping some trees. It looks like we should be able to sneak it in now. It's just a question of making it look like it's going to line up nicely. And that looks like the spot to me. Might as well use this one over on the Hunter's Hut. See how that's going. Just need some rope. Oh, what can't you do? Stuck short of materials again. So maybe we need to actually just put back up next to our foraging area, because again, we're going to have villagers going up and down here once we get the mine underway. They're going to be going up and down there fairly regularly. So we might as well get a fairly common sort of path and area underway. So that's a pretty good separation. Doesn't overlap too much with the other one, or not at all, really. So that's good. And as you can see, there's plenty of rabbits that hang out up here. So we might even get, eventually, a marker for the hunter to tell him to come hunt up here as well, because it looks like it'll be a pretty good spot. There's that flax we gathered earlier for some rope. Knock that in. That'll give our stonecutter somewhere to go harvest some more rocks. Also means that when the mine's underway, hopefully he'll go pick them up from the mine itself. So that always generates more rocks than you need. And we've also got, as a side benefit, the rope that we need for the hunter's hut. We'll pop that in. May as well just knock that through. Then we can see what's needed for the third tier. Pop in what we've got. Short one rope. Have we got any flax? No, it looks like that's still growing. It's getting there soon. And well, but we do have enough on us just to make that one a couple of spares. So that's good. Plenty of food. Cook's underway. Everything's sort of starting to hum together nicely here, isn't it? Good job, buddies. No bark though. And that could be, even though, could be because we pumped up the priority at one point on the logs. Because there wasn't enough of those. So if I put that back to medium so that everything's the same priority, that should hopefully mean that there is a bit more focus on just balancing out all of the material we need. Okay, I think that's sort of all the little tasks done around here. So let's move on with the cottage, flattening out the terrain first. Then we'll be able to move on to construction. I think that's everything that we can easily put in. So the one thing that's missing still is bark. I can hear our woodcutter off chopping down their own trees. So let's help them out a bit. Clearing out the area that we're going to need cleared out anyway to continue building down this row. So we'll do this, get ourselves some bark, and that'll help finish off the next phase of the cottage. There we go. There's our bark for the... Wait a second. The bark's not for the cottage. The bark's for the hunter's hut. And that puts those in there. We just need 3 more. I thought I heard them finishing off their own tree, but let's do a second tree for ourselves, and that'll get us the bark that we need to finish that off. There we go. Grab the bark, head on over to the hunter's hut, and there we are, finishing off a hunter's hut. Now that we've got our hunter's hut, it's time to assign Asa to it, taking them away from the archery range, but that'll mean that she'll be able to go out and get some meat for us. You can see grabbing some food from the cooking station, heading over. You can see Asa over in the distance there, probably grabbing a skinning knife, or maybe just some water. Ooh, we have flax. Our farm is finally paying off from the fibre point of view. You can see there that the crops, they're ready to be gathered. These ones are still growing, but oh no, there they go. They just popped right in front of us. And there's our craftsman over to grab what they need to make the fibre. And we can also steal a little bit for ourselves, since we're going to need a bit of rope. Actually, we can probably speed things up also for some of the builders by making a bunch of it now and popping it over in the small items storage of the workshop. Pop them in there, and we can probably pop a few other bits and pieces that we don't need in there for people to use. Here comes our builder, grabbing the rope straight away. Also means that we can probably think about building the weaver add-on for the workshop, but before we get there, we need to update our tasks. Since we've updated the workshop to the workshop hut, we haven't added any of our new tools. You can see most of them are grayed out because they're going to need some iron, so we'll need to get working on the mine sometime soon. But there's also these flimsy cloth materials, as well as a nice new bow. We can't make the cloth yet until we build the weaver, but in the short term we can make a better bow for Asa and a better set of arrows. So if we get rid of the flimsy short bow, delete that, we don't need those anymore. And we'll add the simple bow and the bone-tipped arrows. Might make 20 of those, and they can stay there in the priority, that's fine. With that out of the way, let's get our weaver happening. So just grab the extension, spin it around so it matches up, and plonk it down. That's all there is to it. Even though when you put the building down it looks like it can extend a long way out to the side, it doesn't actually. So now that this one's here, we'll be able to potentially put in another building in that space that's left next to the workshop, but that'll do for now. Let's grab that rope. We used it all up already. Did we leave any left? Just a few. We still need lots more for the cottage, so let's go over and raid our farm. You can see why you need the farm to generate all that flax, because you do start to tear through it once you're building a bunch of things. And when the weaver starts using fibre for the cloth, that's going to just use up even more. And we have a blood moon. Just as everybody's going to bed. See you fellas. Good on you to hang out with me and help defend the village. But since the monsters can take a little bit to come over from wherever they spawn, just do a little bit of extra building, but probably should start looking for them soon. You can see the red marker on the compass at the top. That shows you where they're coming from. And welcome Mr. Skeleton. Ouch. I'll take that one hit just to get the stun in, and then we can, if we don't run out of stamina, we can finish him off. Just get that stamina back. And there we go. Whoop, couple more whites. We're not done yet with this first wave. Couple of hits and a head. Did he headbutt me? Was that a headbutt? Let's just get... Oh, no. He got one more swing in. But not too bad. We need to start thinking about actually dodging a little bit more, rather than just taking them on face first. But we'll harvest these whites down. See if we get any Jotun bloods. No Jotun Bloods today. Take bones though. And then harvest down our skeleton. That's the skeleton all harvested up as well. We need these bone fragments now for our arrows. And since we're a bit thirsty, I'm just going to grab a drink. Since I used up all the water in my pouch for cooking. And what do we got now? A couple more whites. 3 of them, I reckon. Again, they're not too bad. Get the stun in, dodge the rest. Next stuns. There we go. That's how you do it. Lock them all up. Beautiful. Let's harvest away. Ooh, got a couple of Jotun Bloods from those 3, so that's a nice little bonus. I got bored waiting for the last round of enemies to come, so just thought I'd come back and get some food. Ooh, big scaly tree guy. Still stunned, so that's good. And you were the last one. Ooh, funky Draugr death animation. You turn into stone on death. So rather than smashing with a hammer or carving you up with a knife, we're using a pickaxe. Anything exciting? Nah, just some small stones this time. And a large stone, which our stonecutter can take care of. So that's the end of day 8 in the Seaborne Raider update for Aska. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing if you'd like to see more of my videos in the future. Massive thanks to my patrons for their support, thanks to you for watching, and happy raiding.